This is Sports Jam. I'm Doug Doyle. My guest tonight is one of the most famous poets in the world. Poet, author, and political activist, Amiri Baraka of Newark. Amiri, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for asking me.
Do you see any connection between jazz or music in general and sports?
Well, they're both expressions. I, of course, was raised in this town. My father used to bring me down to see the Newark Eagles like at least twice a month, which I always liked, seeing those, not only the black ball players, who were the greatest at that time, but the people that would come. You know, there was always this sense of liberation about them being able to come down and see the greatest players. Although one time, I remember when the Eagles opened, I can't think of the season, but they opened and Leon Day, as it was, the pitcher, pitched a no-hitter. And the Negroes threw those little couches down on the field, and so we didn't have couches the rest of the season. But no, we were very proud of them because. And then when the major leagues start taking black ball players, remember the second ball player they took was Larry Doby from the Newark Eagles, and then the Giants took Monty Irvin, and and so the players that we had admired, they would obviously confirm that they were really great players in anybody's league because the big leagues took them right away.
Hooray, hooray, the time has really come. Hooray, hooray, the time has really come. Cleveland got Larry Doby, Brooklyn's got Jackie Robinson.
You certainly did see some of the greatest ball players that ever put on a uniform. What do you remember most about the Newark Eagles? Is there a certain game, or you mentioned some of those players? And give us some memory that kind of just shoots in there when we talk about them.
The one thing I remember is Larry Doby, who was, again, the second player in the big leagues, hit a ball in the stands, and my father caught it, which I still have it to this day in my drawer. I'm waiting till somebody makes a good offer.
Wow, I would imagine that would go for quite a bit.
No, I don't know when that was. I can't think of it. It was 42 or 52, one of them. But yeah, Doby, who was my favorite player on the Eagles. As a matter of fact, I tried to run like him when I was in high school. You know, the way he walked and all that, pigeon-toed and all that stuff. And my father scooped that ball up. But my father was like a very, very loyal baseball fan, and not only that, it took me to the Eagles, then he started taking me to the Giants game, and so I saw the great Willie Mays when he first broke into, because my father would have me by the hand and take me to Giants Stadium, the Polo Grounds, you know what I'm saying? And,
you were kind of spoiled, Amiri.
Well, I guess so. I even saw the New York Football Giants when there was only one black player. He would take me in there, and we'd be sitting in there.
What was that like, knowing there was only one black player for the Giants?
Well, that was our hero.
And so what went through your mind when you saw that as a young kid?
It made me think that, they were slow in understanding that we could do whatever they could do. That's what I thought, because we would go there, and Emlyn Tennell, who was a great defensive back for the Giants, and we would be there for Emlyn Tennell, whatever anybody else said.
The high punt drops into the waiting arms of Emlyn Tennell, and he does what the New York fans have been hoping for all afternoon as he dodges away from the outstretched hands of the Eagle defenders to romp 72 yards behind good blocking, adding another brilliant run back to his record and a touchdown to the New York side of the scoreboard.
But, then quickly, the major leagues start opening very quickly, replicating these players, and I was very happy. As a matter of fact, I was a Giant fan until the Giants betrayed us and went to San Francisco. So then I became a Yankee fan.
That was a tough day for many people when that happened.
Yeah.
Just like for the Brooklyn fans.
Same thing for the Brooklyn fans. The Dodgers, I could never believe that. I couldn't believe that. That's like saying that something that you always, depended on had suddenly split. You want to know, why did you do that? So that was my last Giants, loyalist. But I could never get over Willie Mays. That was my favorite to the very end.
Say hey, say who? Say Willie. Say hey, say who? Swing it at the plate. Say hey, say choo-choo train swings around second like an aeroplane. His cap flies off when he passes third, and he heads home like an eagle bird. Say hey, say who? Say Willie. Say hey, say who? Swinging at the plate. Say hey, say who? Say Willie. That giant kid is great.
Did you play any baseball?
All the time. That's what we did. We played.
Where did you play it
constantly.
here in Newark?
I played second base and I pitched. Figure that out.
What field?
Where did we play? We played right behind Essex County Prison. That's where we played. And, of course, Branchbrook Park. You know, we used to play, regularly. As a matter of fact, we thought we had a semi-pro team once, But sports in a town like Newark was a constant thing, all seasons. Basketball, baseball, football, always. Whatever the season was, you were playing, And
So you went when you only saw a few black athletes performing, and now you to today's era. Can you believe that it's happened?
Well, yeah. Now I've seen it happen, and I can understand it because now they got all the Latin players because they can play. You see what I mean? And pretty soon the race thing becomes secondary. Once you start opening the door, then it's about who's the best player, you see. And then so the whole kind of stereotype fiction just gets eliminated by the fact that, well, he's a better player. I don't care what he looks like. And same thing with the Latinos. They're out there. They're doing it. I think the baseball leagues now have sought to try to reemphasize the black presence because it kind of, went away for a while, but they're now pushing Jackie Robinson again, And interestingly enough, I mean, the fact that Jackie Robinson, when he got in, you would have to like Jackie Robinson to a certain extent. But I was never a Jackie Robinson fan. I was a Willie Mays fan, Newark Eagles fan. And, I appreciated Jackie Robinson. I even met him once. But that
How'd
wasn't
that
my
go?
favorite ball player.
How'd that go? What'd you say to him?
Hello. I saw him walking down the street. He's walking up and said, "How you doing, Mr. Robinson?" That's it. But that wasn't my thing. I was always into Willie Mays and the Giants and the Eagles. See, because the real main fuel for our enthusiasm was the Newark Eagles. And I think when the Newark Bears opened their stadium here, I know I, for one, and I'm sure other people kept saying, well, when are you going to do something for the Eagles? When are you going to do something for the Eagles? And so then they got now Bears and Eagles Stadium, which I think is only just, I mean, the Eagles were the world champions. I don't know if the Bears ever were, but I know the Eagles were world champions.
Well, you made a very important point, I think, when you talked about race in sports. For me, growing up, my favorite players, especially in baseball, Roberto Clemente and Manny Sanguillen, they were a different color skin than I was. Yeah. But that never came into my thinking. Well, they were great players, and I wanted to be them.
Yeah, I can understand that. Clemente, particularly, with those terrible Pittsburgh, they just built a statue of Clemente here in Newark, and I think they have a school named after him. But that's only normal. And I think a lot of people like that. Sports usually can, to a certain extent, eliminate the kind of stereotypes so that you like the particular athlete and what they can do, and it's an important fact. If we ever get that way throughout the whole society, we'll be much stronger by that fact.
And kind of interesting, on the day that we are taping this show is the day after Ichiro Suzuki has joined the Yankees.
Yeah, unbelievable.
What's your thought about that?
That's unbelievable. I saw that on the net, and I said, this can't be the truth. Why would they get rid of Suzuki like that? But I guess his numbers have been declining, and so it's a business. But I think, what's his name? Cashman is a smart guy. He got him, and he can't hurt us. And we got players injured laying around all over the joint. I mean, when, those two players went down, he had to do something. And so he made a smart move, Do
you get to Yankee Stadium at all?
No more, no. Last time I went to Yankee Stadium, I brought my kids to show you. I had my wife and I 5 children. I brought all of them with me to the to Yankee Stadium up on the top tier, and some guys start fighting about, it was Boston Red Sox and the Yankees, and these guys start fighting. I had to threaten them. I said, I'll push you off because I got my children with me. I can't have you up here tussling. But I think that was the last time I went there to see that, and that's a long time ago. They were like, I don't think they were even teenagers yet.
Is there anybody in today's game that compares to Willie Mays?
Well, to me, Jeter is the closest thing to that, I'd say, for me, But the Yankees have a couple of good players. Cano, who's even got his parents named him after Jackie Robinson Cano. He's a good player, too. And, I follow sports. People might not understand that, but it was always a passion of my youth. I always played all the sports. You know what I mean?
What else did you play?
Well, all of them. Basketball, football.
Were you good?
Baseball. Well, I wouldn't say that. I was on the team, though. I could say that.
You're not the tallest guy. Were you quick?
Yeah, that was it. 1950, I was citywide fourth in the low hurdles and fourth in the broad jump. So, that's like mediocre, but that's where I was.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So you mentioned passion. You've put in passion to all of your work, whether it's writing about jazz or writing your poems or writing about music or your books.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of?
Well, that's hard because I think writers are always proudest of their last complete work, But I know the first book I wrote about the music, called Blues People, has had, the strongest legs. And actually, that was...
that was 1963, Amiri.
Yeah. I attribute that to my English professor at Howard, who was a poet named Sterling Brown, who I didn't know. But, and Toni Morrison and I were on the campus at the same time. To show you, before they integrated the colleges, you had to be on these campuses, and the strong point of that is that you actually benefited that. But this Sterling told me one time, because me and a guy named A.B. Spellman, who's another writer, we were classmates, and we thought we were super hip. We had heard Charlie Parker, therefore we knew everything about the music. And he told us, you all think you know so much about the music, come to my house. And so we went to his house, and he had a whole wall full of 78s. I think 45s were just coming in. It's 1952. And he tells me, he's got all the music lined up by genre, by performer, chronologically. And he says to me, that's your history. That's your history, pointing to those records. And it took me a while. I understood what he said, but to actually absorb that teaching, which was that if you look at the music, if you study the music, you'll know the history of the Afro-American people, And that's what I try to do with Blues People, because the people are always telling you about their lives.
Ball players, should they be role models? Should they speak out on issues? Where do you stand about how athletes are? Should they keep their mouth shut, take their money, or should they spread the word?
See, see, in the 60s, they were all talking about it. I mean, Muhammad Ali was our great figure, I saw Muhammad Ali on the street one time. My wife and I were walking up, Waverly Avenue and Belmont Avenue at the time, and we see Muhammad Ali. He was at some kind of thing, and he says, to us, he says to my wife, your husband is a genius. He said, he knew I was the greatest in the 60s. No, but I mean, it depends on the times, you see. I mean, whereas you have somebody like Michael Jordan, who once said, Republicans buy sneakers too, when the guy who was running against this racist in North Carolina wanted, Jordan's, support. And Michael said he wasn't going to support him because Republicans buy sneakers too. Now, that's a wholly different thing. That's a reactionary thing. It just shows you that people reflect the tide of the times.
Let's talk about your love of jazz. When do you remember the first time you ever heard a jazz tune, and did you know it was jazz?
Well, my parents, I should say this. My grandparents liked the blues, and gospel. My father and mother liked swing. They liked Count Basie, Lookie Melinda, those people. And Nat King Cole, I remember. And so Nat King Cole was the first person I could really dig like that. Louis Jordan and his Symphony 5, I liked them. But on my walking around teenage time, I really liked the doo-wops. I was into all of that. Larry Darnell, Bull Moose Jackson up at the Masonic Temple on Belmont Avenue. Like I said, we got saved once a week. We would go in there and listen to all of the great rhythm and blues groups. But it wasn't until bebop came that I really got turned around to the music.
Who is the Amiri Baraka of jazz and blues? Who would you liken yourself to, whether it be the passion, whether it be the message? Who would you say is the Amiri Baraka of jazz or blues?
Well, Monk, everybody says. I always liked Thelonious Monk because he was the weirdest, and I was there. I lived in New York then, and when he and Train played, I was there every night. And I always thought that Monk had the most profound understanding of the music, because you listen to Monk in the early time when he's playing Duke Ellington, and how he deals with Ellington. You see what I'm saying? And then he starts, again coming out with his own music mainly. But when you listen to the way he deals with Ellington, how he can take the actual essence of Ellington, the interior of Ellington, and take it into another kind of genre that is a Monk version of Duke Ellington. That's very profound. And I used to listen to that over and over and over and over. When I did the book Blues People, I listened to the blues a whole year, all kind of blues, from ancient blues, all kind of blues, because I was trying to fathom that. What is there in the blues that we find important still, no matter what? Because it's true for certainly the Afro-American people. And I think a lot of Americans, you have to stop and salute the blues. When you hear the blues, that's it. You have to, what? And it's that kind of basic national anthem, so to speak. There's a more complicated version of that. But see, when say, Black history, if you read, say, the old slave narratives, what's his name? Olada Equiano says, we are all almost a people of musicians and poets, and blue is our favorite color. So if you figure this, if blue is your favorite color in West Africa, pre-slavery, then how does that get to be the blues? Which is a mixture of loss and sadness. You know what I mean? How does that? Well, it's completely understandable. If you could see beautiful blue to this blue, which we also say you blew, you know what I mean, meaning you lost, you know what I mean? And you also say he blew, meaning he expressed himself. It's that same word, feeling, essence that, lingers in our own kind of history,
What is more difficult for Amiri Baraka, to write about jazz or to write a poem?
Well, no. A poem, that's like an organic part of my own self. What you have to do with the poetry is you have to stop imitating yourself. You know what I mean? Because you have to be able to tell, is this a B, a C, a D, a F, or is this you imitating yourself? You know what I mean? That's what happens when you write poetry, because I'm a poet. So I don't have to do anything special but sit down for the poetry. But then you have to make a distinction as to whether that's a legitimate poem or is that you making believe you are you. You know what I mean? For writing about the music, it takes another kind of element. You have to then figure out what it is that you want to say, what it is you want to say and how deep you want to go. It's another kind of a, task, actually.
You've written some shorter poems. You've written longer poems.
Yeah.
Is there one that do you remember them all? I mean,
no.
When it comes to reciting them, if you were asked by a young boy here in Newark, Mr. Baraka, could you give me what you feel is your most famous poem?
No.
You couldn't give it to him?
No, I'd have to read it. I have poems I can recite, but no.
Recite one for us that means something to you.
And you really want me to?
Absolutely.
Okay. Africa. 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 Go back, black. See yourself. Know yourself. Touch yourself. World, world, world. Go back. Touch yourself. See yourself. Understand yourself. Mighty, ancient, beautiful Africa. Creator of the human being, of music, of dance, of the cities, mighty, beautiful Africa. But when you put your hand on your sister, made her a slave, watch out, Africa. Watch out, Africa, the ghost's gonna get you. When you put your hand on your brother, made him a slave, watch out, Africa, the ghost's gonna get you. Obatala Shango, help me, help me. Obatala Shango, how did I get here? On my back, in the dark, with the wind and water blowing through my ears. Obatala Shango, help me, save me. At the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, there's a railroad made of human bones. Black ivory. Black ivory. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wise one. If you ever find yourself somewhere lost and surrounded by enemies who won't let you speak in your own language, who destroy your statues and instruments, who ban your boom ba boom, you're in trouble, deep trouble. They ban your boom ba boom, you're in deep trouble. Probably take you several hundred years to get out. At the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, there's a railroad made of human bones. Black ivory. Black ivory.
Amiri Baraka here on SportsJam. Thanks for sharing this. When did you start writing? When did you know that you had a flair for writing?
Well, when I was in seventh grade, I had a newspaper. It only had, 8 copies because I had to write them all by hand. But it was a newspaper that I circulated among, I think, my 7 best friends. We had a group called the Secret 7, so I would...
Anybody we know from the Secret 7?
I don't know. They've sort of... let me think about that. No, I think they've all sort of gone into the Newark background, wherever they are. Some of them probably did. But that was about the 7th grade. Then I had this newspaper, and I did a comic strip for the newspaper that interestingly showed somebody holding up people in various locations. Somebody would be diving off a diving board, and somebody would come out of the ocean and say, your money. So I figured I must have had a visionary understanding of what America was. We're speaking with Amiri Baraka here on SportsJam. When did Amiri Baraka know that he was going to be a controversial figure? When did you have your first scrap with somebody? Well, I don't know. It could have been when I was a little boy and shut off all the electricity in the church.
Oh.
and the security guard grabbed me by the neck and dragged me up the steps, and my mother beat my butt. It could have been then. But then in 1967, I had written a poem called Black People and gotten arrested in the rebellion that happened in 1967. And the judge, before sentencing me, said that the poem was a prescription for criminal anarchy. And he sentenced me to 3 years in prison. I said, you sentenced me for possession of 2 guns, which of course was later reversed because I didn't have no guns. You said possession of 2 guns, and I said, and a poem. So I knew that. But I had read about David Walker before that and his appeal, and the idea that you could actually get locked up for something you wrote was really a revelation when it actually happened. I didn't know that they would actually think that you were. I mean, you actually think I'm responsible for the rebellion here, this Newark riot, as you call it. You think I'm responsible for that because I wrote a poem? I mean, really, you people around it. The question of what the conditions in the city were, you talk about 1967 Newark. It didn't take anybody that visionary to see that if you keep this up, you're going to get an explosion. I mean, that didn't take any kind of great, I thought, is what I saw, being here, living right up the street on, Sterling Street, right where the courthouse is now, where I live. So it didn't take a great visionary to see that if this continues like this, there's going to be an explosion. I mean, Newark, 1967 was a bad place. I'll tell you that.
I wonder how thick a skin Amiri Baraka has, because I'm sure people, as they listen, the guest tonight is Amiri Baraka on SportsJam. Some people go, I want to hear everything he has to say. Somebody might say, I don't want to hear from that guy at all.
Yeah, I know. I've had that.
So how do you react to that?
Well, I figure this. If you have a better point of view, let me hear it. I wouldn't discriminate against your point of view. I might say it's backward.
Now, as we wrap up this edition of SportsJam, you have a time that you can see any event in the sports world during the course of the next week, and you can go back in time. What event would you visit?
That's very hard. I don't know if I would want to see Joe Louis knock out Max Spelling or Sugar Ray Robinson. Willie Mays, when he's playing, I think, the World Series against Cleveland, and there was a ball hit over his head. He turned his back to home plate and ran straight back to center field wall, caught the ball in front of him, and then wheeled around and threw it to home plate on one bounce.
Left-hander Vic Wirtz up and left-hander Don Little ready to go. Here's the pitch to Wirtz. Here's a long drive to deep center field. Mays back to the wall. Makes an incredible catch. Turns and fires it in. What a catch by Willie Mays.
I would like to see that again. I saw that delivering groceries in Newark on West Kinney Street and High Street.
How do you characterize yourself?
A poet, political activist.
Could we have wanted to be ball player at that time, too?
You'd say used to be ball player.
Used to be ball player. Did you ever have a dream of being in the majors?
No, not really. Not really. I knew my limitations, like the man said. I always liked to play, though. I always wanted to play. If I was bigger and stronger, I might have had that, but I never did. I never had that.
Amiri Baraka, thanks so much for joining us on SportsJam.
Thank you.
SportsJam is a WBGO News production. Our executive producer is Thurston Briscoe. You can check out all the podcast versions of the show by going to WBGO.org/SportsJam or find SportsJam with Doug Doyle on iTunes. Next Wednesday night at 7:30 right here on Jazz 88.3 FM, my guest will be Olympic gymnastics champion Gabby Douglas. We'll also be joined by junior Olympian Aaliyah Barnes of West Orange High School, who competes in hurdles, and her coach, Kathy Holloman. Until our next Sports Jam session, I'll see you at the game.